John McCartney, Research Director at Savills, is with me in studio. Good morning, John.
Morning, Donal.
You have been crunching the numbers, and in terms of the commercial property market, pre-letting, it's now a major part of the market. I mean, it is essentially what it sounds like, but I suppose just to be clear, what is pre-letting?
Well, pre-letting is what happens when tenants commit to space by signing leases on office space that doesn't even exist yet.
And that's new now in terms of being a major part of the Irish market, is it?
Yes, well, traditionally, occupiers of office space in Ireland are looking for relatively small parcels of space. The average letting is about 1,000 square metres. And because of that, traditionally it has been difficult to pre-let space at that level, because even in a tight market you can find 1,000 square metres relatively easily. So it hasn't been a big thing in the past, but increasingly it's becoming a factor. And in the quarter just gone, quarter 4 2016, 44% of all the office space that was let in Dublin was pre-let.
Is it very much a Dublin phenomenon?
I think it is, and it really is becoming a big factor for two reasons. Firstly, on the demand side, we haven't really built any new office space for 5 years, so the amount of vacant space is diminishing. Now, there's still plenty of Grade A space out there. There's about 26,000 square metres still available. That's enough to house about 2,200 employees. However, if you're an occupier that has a big requirement of space, or if you have very specific locational requirements, then it's becoming increasingly difficult, and you're facing less and less choice all the time. So it suits occupiers at the moment, or it can do, to pre-let space, but equally...
That's, of course, if they know that they're going to be looking to occupy space in 2, 3 or 5 years' time, I suppose.
Indeed, and if they have growth built into their strategy and their expectations, it can work out very well for them. Equally, from the supply side of the market, what we're seeing is a sea change, really, because of credit conditions. Back in the day, developers would have been able to go to the bank to get finance to speculatively build office blocks, but today that's become very difficult, and the banks want to see pre-lets in place before they will lend the money to speculative developers. So all in all, it suits everybody at the moment.
Is that the real driver of it? Is it? I mean, the banks obviously have been burned by commercial property and by speculation. Are they very much kind of looking to insure themselves by making sure that the builder has a tenant before they even turn the sod? That's exactly it. And this is a Dublin phenomenon. Presumably it's the big end. When you're talking about 44% of the space, that's probably a relatively small number of properties, is it?
Well, the average letting, as I say, is about 1,000 square metres. The pre-lets are a bit bigger, so you're probably talking 30 or 40 deals in that category of pre-lets.
In terms of then overall of the commercial property market, I mean, there are lots of cranes in Dublin. Fewer cranes once you get outside Dublin, and in the city centre, they seem to be all on the commercial side, or mixed commercial and residential. Is the supply coming? Is there a danger that the supply is all going to come at once and there'll be more than we need?
Well, currently, to put the numbers on it, there is about 390,000 square metres of office space on site under construction in Dublin. And to put that in context, there's about 3.6 million square metres in total already existing. So you're talking about sort of 12% of the pre-existing stock is now about to be added and is already on site.
Very sizable.
Quite sizable, but 41% of that is already pre-let, and as those projects come closer to completion, more and more of them will be let before they're even finished. So we don't see any immediate danger of an avalanche of oversupply that will cause rents to fall. And then looking further ahead, there is the potential for another 750,000 square metres of space to be developed. If you think of the Dublin Landings project, for example, on the North Docks, that's a huge project in itself, over 200,000 square metres of space potentially there. So there is all of this space that can be brought on stream if required. And I think the extent to which that actually comes to fruition will just depend on demand conditions in the market. If there's the demand for it, rents will remain strong and it will be viable to build that and it'll get done. If not, it'll be put in abeyance and it'll happen in the next cycle in 10 or 15 years' time.
And I suppose the flip side of that question is if Brexit is as kind of sharp and shocking as people have been talking about potentially, is there space in Ireland for a mass influx of London office workers?
Yeah, well, that's the great imponderable. We've all heard, of course, that financial services companies, insurance companies, and indeed many other types of companies are sort of circling, trying to assess their options. And Dublin will be in there competing to attract those, along with Luxembourg and Frankfurt and Amsterdam and Paris. The extent to which it results in actual letting deals on the ground, I think, remains to be seen. It's probably too early to gauge that, but I think the good news is that the space is there if required. It can be pretty quickly delivered. As an economist would say, we have a fairly elastic supply of space. It'll be quite responsive to the price signals.
John McCartney, Director of Research at Savills, thanks for that. Coming up after the break, we'll have all the latest from the market.